Yeah. So, well, I was in college at the time, and I was driving the car in the morning, and I wasn't only in college. I I was running a business. I had two other jobs. I was on Concerta, SSRI, the typical one that they just hand out like candy if you're in university and you have a hard time focusing because you're probably not at all interested in what it is you're doing, or, whatever. We don't need to go down that rabbit hole. I was in that stream of mediocrity, of the linear way. And I always say life didn't give me much of a grace period. So, yeah, I was hit by a bus, a Coach Lines bus at an intersection on my driver's side, which ended up being a three-car collision, one of those vehicles being this biggest vehicle that can go on the road. And this series of events that was the car crash unfolding was this utter impossible. Like my car literally spiraled like this through a series of trees that were only about 4 to 5 meters apart, didn't hit a single one, and stopped about an inch in front of a ladder that someone was on working on a house. And so it was just like, I didn't even hear the car, or I didn't even hear the sound of the bus hitting the car. I was lights out immediately. And my experience was that I got out of the car. I was going to pick up a couple of friends. We had just finished exams, and I was going to pick them up in the morning or a day altogether to celebrate. And my experience was that I got out of the car, I went to my friends, and I just kind of calmed everybody, let everyone know everything was absolutely fine. But meanwhile, what was actually happening was the car had crushed in on me. It took three men to get me out of the car. And so there was this physical thing happening. It happened actually outside of my friend's house at the intersection just before her house. They were the ones that called 911, which is, yeah, Canadian emergency number. And whilst being on the phone, they were asked, is there anyone else involved in the accident? And all they could see was the bus and this other SUV. So they did diligence to walk around the bus, and there they saw me in the car. And my best friend still says to this day, she had never seen me so blissful. She said, you were luminous and you were in a complete state of bliss. So my experience was that I left my body immediately. And I didn't grow up religious. My mother is a writer, a sage, kind of sage spirit, mystic poet. So, when I had an issue growing up, her response would literally be, go put your spine up against a tree and all of your answers will be there. So
That seems like that would be your mom.
Yeah. So, yeah, why do I say that? I say that just because, yeah, I didn't grow up in a household where we were worshiping God, as, we would typically correlate that. In this experience, the only word I had to describe it was God. I was transported into a complete godly realm where there were colors that I had never seen in this dimension, and for that matter, in any experience that evokes a non-ordinary state. And it was very, very clear. I had the choice whether or not to live, which for me was very, very easy. And then another set of choices followed that. And it was, what path are you choosing to live? And this was really very interesting because two pathways unfolded in front of me. And the one on the left was the path that I was on. And I literally saw everything I would accomplish, everything I would achieve, it was sort of like a timeline, like a film, if you will, just rolled out in front of me. Nothing wrong, nothing bad, beautiful, great, learn a lot, wonderful. And the other path was, the path of coming fully alive. And I saw myself inhabiting my body, being in my vasculature, breathing the air, taking in the sun, almost like exalted, but in a very embodied way. And the beautiful thing was that there was no wrong choice. And I could have taken as much time as I needed to make that choice. And I still wonder, if I needed more time, if I would have been in a coma for a long time, I woke up in the hospital to them slamming me into x-rays machines and blasting water in my eyes to get the glass out and many things. And I remember just trying. I was still in this non-ordinary, very holy realm. And I just needed everything to slow down, get darker, and get quieter. And I remember wanting to scream like, ouch, but I couldn't make sound out of my mouth. And I wanted to say, please turn the lights down and go slower. Can everyone just stop everything? Can I just try to get in my body, basically? And it just kept going faster and thrashing and clunking. And it felt like I was experiencing gravity for the first time. And so all of this is to say that as the years went on, I realized that that was a complete and total representation of my birth and of almost everyone's birth, actually. We leave this godly realm where we are interconnected, one, the realm of oneness, I am with source, to gravity, rough, aggressive touch, fast movements, bright lights, all the things, washing, ointment, this and that. There's one unique thing about my work, I would say, is that I have some birth and pre-birth memories still intact, which that near-death experience opened the library to even deeper. It was like remembering that I remembered, remembering that I never forgot. And when I was born, I have a memory of laying in my mother's arms and just yearning for her to ask me about my experience. It was like, imagine you just get back from the most heroic journey of your entire life. You climbed Everest or did something that could kill you. And you get back, you're with your family, and no one even asks you what that experience was like for you. And the feeling is that I had lived lifetimes inside of the womb. I lost a twin around the time of my implantation, which is a very existential part of my being that follows me and is part of my life. And so what I feel is that had I have been given the opportunity to share my experience at that time of birth, to express that grief, that primordial agony, or whatever it was, the ecstatic bliss of feeling my father's smile permeating the room as I came through birth, whatever it was, that particularly with the twin loss, I feel if I had the space, and this is true for all babies, when babies have the space where they can share their story, where they can communicate in all the crystal clear ways that they do through their body language and their cries and their movements and their feeding, that grief wouldn't have become so deeply suppressed inside of my body. And what I want to actually correlate to the near-death experience is that at the time of that near-death experience, I didn't talk to even my closest family about what I had truly experienced. I didn't share that I had completely left my body and had this divine, life-changing experience for about 2 years. And so there's one way that I can see that experience recapitulated, which means another event happened and I internalized it and experienced it and responded to it in the same way.
Why did you not speak to them for 2 years about the truth of what you had seen, what you had been through? Is it because you yourself were figuring it out? Or is it because you felt like they wouldn't receive it? Because I could see that conversation playing out much like the traditional conversation of, are you going to have a baby in the hospital, or are you going to have a baby, by a stream? I could see that there's like a lot of things to unpack as far as how your family would relate to you going into the depths of the abyss of consciousness, coming back reborn, rebirthed. There's a huge connection and corollary to the collective consensus about birth as well. Were they not ready to hear it from you? Were you scared to share it with them?
Yeah, Josh, it's a good question. I think there's no one answer. One, I was integrating on such a level that was almost cellular and molecular that to speak about it likely would have taken away. And so there was probably an unseen wisdom in the way that I went about it. And simultaneously, the head trauma and the trauma of the actual experience inevitably played a role in the dissociation from the experience.
Yeah, it makes sense to me because, look, there's things that we talk about that are normalized, and then there's things that we don't talk about that are normalized. I'm sure wherever you are, you're in Portugal, correct? You live in Portugal? The culture there is much different than America. In America, you don't talk about politics, you don't talk about religion, but it's totally cool to talk about anything else. Birth is this 1 foot in, 1 foot out conversational acceptance topic where so many people have been trained, myself included, before I met you, before I became a partner to Carrie Michelle, before we had 2 beautiful children in the world, which you helped us bring into the world so beautifully, so powerfully. I did not know. There were so many things that I was unconsciously incompetent about. In other words, I didn't even know that I did not know. Birth was one of them. I didn't know about circumcision. I didn't know about the birth machine. I didn't know about the industrial medical complex. So many things I was unconsciously incompetent about. And this path of liberation that you talk about on your website, it always is in plain sight.
Hey, if you loved that clip you just saw, watch the full video. That clip was just a taste, just a piece, the tip of the freaking iceberg of what you just witnessed and what you just felt. Click the link on this screen, subscribe to the podcast, click the link on this screen if you're vibrating, if you're resonating, if you feel what I'm putting down.